Hello students and welcome to our YouTube channel Rejoice Education। हम 8th स्टैंडर्ड CBSE सोशल एंड पॉलिटिकल साइंस के 5th चैप्टर पे हैं जिसका नाम है जुडिशियरी। चलिए देखते हैं इस चैप्टर में क्या दिया है। ओके स्टूडेंट्स, अब हम पेज नंबर 55 पे हैं। व्हाट इज़ द रोल ऑफ द जुडिशरी? जुडिशरी का रोल क्या है? कोर्ट्स टेक डिसीजंस ऑन अ वेरी लार्ज नंबर ऑफ इश्यूज़। कोर्ट जो होता है वो डिसीजन बहुत अलग अलग इश्यूज़ पे लेता है। They can decide that no teacher can beat a student, or about the sharing of river waters between states, or they can punish people for particular crimes। ठीक है, सो वो डिसाइड करते हैं कि टीचर को बच्चे को मारना नहीं चाहिए, या फिर रिवर वाटर कैसे शेयर करना है स्टेट्स के बीच में, या फिर वो पनिश कर सकता है लोगों को क्राइम के लिए। Broadly speaking, the work that the judiciary does can be divided into the following. One is dispute resolution. अनबन अगर होती है उसको रिजॉल्व करना। द जुडिशियल सिस्टम प्रोवाइड्स अ मैकेनिज्म फॉर रिजॉल्विंग डिस्प्यूट्स between citizens and the government, between two state governments, and between the center and the state government. Next is judicial review. As the final interpreter of the constitution, the judiciary also has the power to strike down particular laws passed by the parliament if it believes that these are a violation of the basic structure of the constitution। फाइनल इंटरप्रेटर यानी फाइनल जज होते हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का जुडिशरी। इस वजह से उनके पास पावर है ऐसे लॉज को पास जो पार्लियामेंट ने पास किए हैं उसे क्या करने की, खारिज करने की। अगर वो बिलीव करते हैं कि वो एक वायलेशन यानी वो अवेलना कर रहा है बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की। दिस इज़ कॉल्ड जुडिशरी रिव्यू। Next is upholding the laws and enforcing fundamental rights. Every citizen of India can approach the Supreme Court or the High Court if they believe that their fundamental rights have been violated. For example, in the class 7th book, you read about Hakim Sheikh, an agricultural laborer who fell from a running train and injured himself, and whose condition got worse because several hospitals refused to admit him. On hearing his case, the Supreme Court ruled that Article 21, which provides every citizen the fundamental right to life, also includes the right to health. हर आर्टिकल 21 के हिसाब से हर सिटीज़न की फंडामेंटल राइट है जीने की और उसकी हेल्थ को देखने की। 8 therefore directed the West Bengal government to pay him compensation for the loss suffered, as well as to come up with blueprint for primary health care with particular reference to treatment of patients during an emergency। पश्चिम बंगाल खेत मजदूर समिति वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ वेस्ट बंगाल 1996। सो स्टूडेंट्स यही है ना कि अगर कोई ऐसा इशू निकल के आता है तो जुडिशरी को निर्णय लेना बहुत ज़रूरी हो जाता है। What is an independent judiciary? Imagine a situation in which a powerful politician has encroached on land belonging to your family. Within this judicial system, the politician has the power to appoint and dismiss a judge from his office. When you take this case to court, the judge is clearly partial to the politician। एक सिचुएशन इमेजिन करो जहाँ पे एक पावरफुल पॉलिटिशियन है और उन्होंने आपके लैंड को आपसे छीन लिया है जो आपकी फैमिली का बिलोंग करता है, और जुडिशियल सिस्टम के हिसाब से इस पॉलिटिशियन के पास पावर है अपॉइंट और डिसमिस जज को करने की जो निर्णय लेते हैं। सो आप जब कोर्ट में केस लेके जाते हो तो जब जज क्या होंगे, पार्शियल, यानी निर्णय सही से नहीं लेंगे क्योंकि वो पॉलिटिशियन के डर में रहेंगे। The control that the politician hold over the judge does not allow for the judge to take an independent decision. This lack of independence would force for the judge to make all judgments in favor of the politician, right? Although we often hear of rich and powerful people in India trying to influence the judicial process, the Indian Constitution protects against this kind of situation by providing for the independence of the judiciary। तो इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन प्रोटेक्ट करता है ऐसी सिचुएशन से, और ये क्या करता है, इंडिपेंडेंस प्रोवाइड करता है जुडिशरी को। One aspect of this independence is the separation of power. This, as you read in chapter 1, is a key feature of the constitution। What this means here is that other branches of government, the legislature and the executive, cannot interfere with the work of the judiciary। Legislature, executive interfere यानी दखलंदाजी नहीं कर सकते judiciary के काम में। The court are not under the government and do not act on their behalf। For the above separation to work well, it is crucial that all the judges in the High Court as well as Supreme Court are appointed with very little interference from the other branches of government। Once appointed to this office, it is very difficult to remove a judge. एक बार अगर अपॉइंट हो जाते हैं तो एक बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है एक जज को वहाँ से निकालना. It is the independence of the judiciary that allows the court to play a central role in ensuring that there is no misuse of power by the legislature and the executive. So judiciary का independence allow करता है courts को एक बहुत ही अहम भूमिका निभाने के लिए कि कोई power को misuse नहीं कर रहा है legislature या executive से. It also plays a crucial role in protecting the fundamental rights of citizens because anyone can approach the courts if they believe that their rights have been violated. कोई भी कोर्ट पे आ सकता है अगर उन्हें लगता है कि उनकी राइट्स या उनको उनका हक उनसे छीन लिया गया है. What is the structure of courts in India? There are three different levels of courts in our country. There are several courts at the lower level while there is only one at the apex. Apex यानी कि सबसे ऊपरी level पे. The courts that most people interact with are what we call subordinate or district court. These are usually at the district or tehsil level, or in towns they hear many kinds of cases. ये local courts होते हैं students. Each state is divided into districts that are presided over and by a district judge. Each state has a high court, which is the highest court of that state. At the top of it is the Supreme Court that is located in New Delhi and is presided over by the Chief Justice of India. The decision made by the Supreme Court are binding on all other courts. Binding यानी कि मजबूर करता है बाकी सारे courts of India. So सबसे top पे आते हैं हमारे Supreme Court. Okay students, अब हम page number 58 पे हैं. Are these different level of courts connected to each other? Yes, they are. In India, we have an integrated judicial system. Integrated judicial system यानी कि सारे courts एक दूसरे से connected है. Meaning that the decisions made by the higher courts are binding to the lower courts. Another way to understand this integration is through the appellate system that exists in India. This means that a person can appeal to a higher court if they believe that the judgment passed by the lower court is not just. पर्सन हायर कोर्ट में अपील कर सकता है अगर उन्हें लगता है कि लोअर कोर्ट से जजमेंट सही से पास नहीं हुई है. Let us understand what we mean by the appellate system by tracking a case. State Delhi administration versus Lakshman Kumar and others 1985 from the lower courts to the Supreme Court. In February 1980, Lakshman Kumar married 20-year-old Sudha Goel and they lived in a flat in Delhi with Lakshman's brothers and their families. On 2nd December 1980, Sudha died in hospital due to burns. Burns यानी कि वो जलने की वजह से उनकी देहांत हो गया और family filed a case in court. When this case was heard in the trial court, 4 of her neighbors were called in as witnesses. They stated that on the night of December 1, they had heard Sudha scream and had forced their way into Lakshman's flat. उन्होंने सुना था कि सुधा चिल्ला रही थी और उन्होंने अपने आप को लक्ष्मण के फ्लैट में फोर्स किया अंदर घुसने के लिए. There they saw Sudha standing with her sari in flames. They extinguished the fire by wrapping Sudha in a gunny bag and a blanket. और फायर को उन्होंने बुझाया सुधा को wrap करके एक गोनी में और एक ब्लैंकेट के साथ. Sudha told them that her mother-in-law Shakuntala had poured kerosene oil on her and that her husband Lakshman had lit the fire. During the trial, members of Sudha's family and a neighbor stated that Sudha has been subjected to torture by her in-laws and that they were demanding more cash, a scooter and a fridge on the birth of their first child. तो सुधा के birth of the first child यानी सुधा के बच्चे पे वो कैश, स्कूटर और फ्रिज मांग रहे थे. As part of their defense, Lakshman and his mother stated that Sudha's sari had accidentally caught fire while she was heating milk. On the basis of this and other evidence, the trial court convicted Lakshman, his mother Sakuntala and his brother-in-law Subhash Chandra and sentenced all 3 of them to death. In November 1983, the 3 accused went to the higher court to appeal against this verdict of the trial court. The High Court, after hearing the arguments of all the lawyers, decided that Sudha had died due to an accident fire caused by the kerosene stove. Lakshman, Shakuntala and Subhash Chandra were acquitted. Acquitted यानी उन्हें बलि करा दिया गया, उन्हें छोड़ दिया गया. You may remember the photo essay on the women's movement in your class 7th book. You read about how in 1980s women groups across the country spoke out against dowry threats. They protested against the failure of courts to bring these cases to justice. वो protest किया उन्होंने, कोर्ट जस्टिस नहीं दे पा रहा था ऐसे केसेस में. The above High Court judgment deeply troubled women, and they held demonstrations and filed a separate appeal against the High Court decision in the Supreme Court through the Indian Federation of Women Lawyers. उन्होंने एक दूसरी अपील डाली सुप्रीम कोर्ट के लिए. In 1985, the Supreme Court heard this appeal against the acquittal of Lakshman and the two members of his family. The Supreme Court heard the arguments of the lawyers and reached a decision that was different from that of the High Court. They found Lakshman and his mother guilty but acquitted the brother-in-law Subhash because they did not have enough evidence against him. सुभाष के खिलाफ उनके पास कोई सबूत नहीं था. The Supreme Court decided to send the accused to the prison for life. उन्होंने जेल की सज़ा उन्हें दे दी थी. What are the different branches of the legal system? The above case of the dowry death falls within what is considered a crime against society and is a violation of criminal law. In addition to criminal law, the legal system also deals with civil law cases. You read in Chapter 4 of how a new civil law was passed in 2006 to protect women against domestic violence. Look at the following table to understand some of the significant differences between criminal and civil law. So criminal law deals with conducts or acts that law defines an offense. यानी कि for example theft, harassing a woman to bring more dowry, murder. So ये सारी चीज़ें criminal law में आती है. Civil law deals with any harm or injury to rights of individuals. For example, disputes related to sale of land, purchase of goods, rent matters, divorce cases. ये सारे civil law deal करता है. It usually begins with lodging of an first information report (FIR) with the police, who investigates the crime, after which a case is filed in the court. A petition has to be filed before the relevant court by the affected party only. In a rent matter, either the landlord or tenant can file a case. If found guilty, the accused can be sent to jail and also be fined. The court gives a specific relief asked for. For instance, in a case between a landlord and a tenant, the court can order the flat to be vacant and pending rent to be paid. अगर लैंडलॉर्ड और टेनेंट के केस में कोर्ट क्या बोल सकता है? फ्लैट को वेकेंट खाली करने को बोल सकता है और जितना भी रेंट बाकी है उसे पे करने को बोल सकता है. Does everyone have access to the courts? क्या सभी को एक्सेस है कोर्ट्स का? क्या सभी लोग जा सकते हैं कोर्ट में? In principle, all citizens of India can access the courts in the country. This implies that every citizen has a right to justice through the courts. As you read earlier, the courts play a very significant role in protecting our fundamental rights. If any citizen believes that their rights are being violated, they can approach the court for justice to be done. वो approach कर सकते हैं कोर्ट को. While the courts are available for all, in reality, access to courts has always been difficult for a vast majority of poor India. Legal procedures involve a lot of money. Legal procedures के लिए बहुत पैसे लगते हैं और पेपर वर्क लगता है और बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम भी चला जाता है. For a poor person we cannot read and whose family depend on daily wage, the idea of going to court to get justice often seems remote. एक गरीब इंसान के लिए जो पढ़ नहीं सकता और जिसकी फैमिली डेली के वेजेस पे डिपेंड करती है, उनके लिए कोर्ट जाना या जस्टिस लेना बहुत मुश्किल हो सकता है. In response to this, the Supreme Court in the earlier 1980s devised a mechanism of public interest litigation or PIL to increase access to justice. It allowed any individual or organization to file a PIL in the High Court or the Supreme Court on behalf of those whose rights have been violated. ठीक है, अगर जिसके भी राइट्स अगर वायलेट हुए होंगे उसके बिहाफ पे कोई और फाइल कर सकता है. The legal process was greatly simplified and even a letter to telegram addressed to the Supreme Court or the High Court could be treated as a PIL. In the early years, PIL was used to secure justice on a large number of issues such as rescuing bonded laborers from inhuman working conditions, securing the release of prisoners in Bihar who had been kept in jail even after their punishment term was complete. ठीक है. Did you know that in the midday meal that children now receive in government and government aided school is because of a PIL? आपको पता है कि पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट लिटिगेशन किसी ने फाइल किया था, इस वजह से मिड डे मील मिल रही हैं बच्चों को गवर्नमेंट और गवर्नमेंट एडेड स्कूल्स में. See the photos on the right and read the text below to understand how this came about. For the common person, access to court is access to justice. The court exercise a crucial role in interpreting the fundamental rights of citizens, and as you saw in the above case, the courts interpreted Article 21 of the Constitution on the right of life to include the right of food. They therefore ordered the state to take certain steps to provide food for all, including the मिड डे मील स्कीम. फिर उन्होंने स्टेट को कहा कि मिड डे मील्स प्रोवाइड करने की ज़रूरत है बच्चों को, क्योंकि उनका न्यूट्रिशन नहीं हो रहा है. However, there are also court judgments that people believe work against the best interest of the common people. For example, activists who work on the issue concerning the right to shelter and housing for poor believe that the recent judgment on evictions are far cry from earlier judgments. While recent judgments tend to view the slum dweller as an encroached in the city, earlier judgments like the 1985 Olga Tellis versus Bombay Municipal Corporation had tried to protect the livelihoods of slum dwellers. So students, कभी कभी कोर्ट के जो जजमेंट होते हैं वो लोगों के खिलाफ भी जाते हैं. जैसे यहाँ पे एक एग्जांपल दिया है, जो एक्टिविस्ट यानी इन सब चीज़ों के लिए लड़ने वाले जो लोग होते हैं वो फूड, क्लोथिंग एंड शेल्टर गरीबों के लिए लड़ रहे थे. और पहले का जजमेंट, अभी का जजमेंट जो पास हुआ था वो काफ़ी अगेंस्ट है लोगों के. पहले का जजमेंट जो पास किया गया था वो सबसे अच्छा था. वो कहा गया है जो 1985 में पास किया गया था, और उससे क्या होता था, स्लम ड्वेलर्स की लाइफ प्रोटेक्ट हो रही थी. लेकिन नया जजमेंट जो पास हुआ है उससे नहीं हो रही है. Another issue that affects the common person's access to justice is the inordinately long number of years that court takes to hear a case. एक केस को सुनाने के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा साल लग जाते हैं और इस वजह से लोग वेट करना नहीं चाहते. The phrase justice delayed is justice denied is often used to characterize this extended time period that court takes. ठीक है, justice delayed is justice denied, यानी कि justice जब तक डिले होता है तब तक वो नज़रअंदाज होता है. is often used to characterize the extended time period that court takes. यहाँ पे देखिए नंबर ऑफ जजेस इन इंडिया, सुप्रीम कोर्ट में है 31, वर्किंग स्ट्रेंथ है 28, 3 वैकेंसी है. डिस्ट्रिक्ट एंड सबॉर्डिनेट कोर्ट में है 22,644, 17,509 काम कर रहे हैं. 5,135 वैकेंसीज हैं. तो यहाँ पे अगर आप देखेंगे, however, in spite of this, there is no denying that the judiciary has played a crucial role in democratic India, serving as a check on the power of the executive and the legislature, as well as protecting the fundamental rights of citizens. The members of the Constituent Assembly had quite correctly envisioned a system of courts with an independent judiciary as a feature of our democracy. यानी कि जुडिशरी के ऊपर कोई भी प्रभाव या प्रेशर पॉलिटिशियंस का न डालते हुए इंडिपेंडेंट डिसीजन जो लेना है वो चीज़ हमें देखना बहुत ज़रूरी है, और यही चीज़ हमने इंडिया के लिए सोची थी. थैंक यू स्टूडेंट्स.